The galaxy was old. Very, very old. Thousands of species had risen to the stars over millions of years. They had built great empires, fought terrible wars, and finally found peace. They called themselves the Galactic Concordat, and they believed they understood everything about how the universe worked. Then they met humanity. The humans arrived late to the cosmic stage. Their first starship left Earth only 800 years ago. In galactic terms, they were babies. The elder races looked at them with mild curiosity, the way a grown person might watch a child taking its first steps. Humans were emotional, short-lived, and seemed obsessed with strange things like art and music and stories. They spread to 12 star systems and built modest colonies. They traded peacefully with their neighbors. They asked questions constantly, always wanting to learn. The Concordat gave humanity a polite nod and mostly ignored them. There were more important matters to discuss. Ancient treaties to maintain. Trade routes to protect. And of course, there was the Vethkai Dominion to consider. The Vethkai were insects. Giant, intelligent insects with hard black shells and eyes like pools of oil. They had ruled 200 star systems for over 50,000 years. They were not evil in the way humans understood evil. They were simply practical. Every few centuries, they would look at the younger species around them and decide which ones were taking up valuable space. Then they would exterminate those species and take their worlds. They called it cleansing. They saw it as natural selection. The strong survived. The weak did not. This was simply the way of things. The Concordat disapproved of these cleansings, but they never stopped them. The Vethkai were powerful. They were valuable trade partners. And besides, the species they killed were always young and weak. No one important. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka stood before the Concordat Council on the day everything changed. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 30 years as a diplomat, building bridges between species, finding common ground. Now she was begging for her people's lives. The Vethkai have declared their intention to cleanse human space, she said. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. 50,000 warships are moving toward our borders. They have given us 30 days to surrender our worlds for processing. We are asking the Concordat for help. The council chamber was vast, filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some existed as clouds of intelligent gas. They all looked at Ambassador Tanaka with the same expression, pity mixed with discomfort. The High Speaker was a being called Vorn, an ancient creature that looked like a floating crystal. It had existed for 12,000 years and considered itself very wise. It spoke with a voice like wind chimes. Ambassador Tanaka, we understand your distress, but the Concordat cannot interfere in Vethkai territorial decisions. This is established precedent. The Dominion has certain rights that we have agreed to respect. Rights to murder billions of people? Tanaka asked. Rights to manage their sphere of influence as they see fit. Vorn's voice held no emotion. Your species has existed for merely 3 million cycles. You are young. You have not yet learned acceptance. This is, regrettably, the way of the galaxy. Tanaka looked around the chamber. She saw closed faces everywhere. No one would help. No one would even try. I see, she said quietly. Then I have nothing more to say to this council. She walked out without looking back. On the Vethkai flagship, Commander Threshenak reviewed the human territories on his tactical display. 12 systems, 47 inhabited worlds, approximately 18 billion humans. It would take his fleet perhaps 2 weeks to complete the cleansing if the humans cooperated. Perhaps a month if they tried to resist. He expected them to resist. Young species always did. They hadn't yet learned that resistance was pointless. They still believed in foolish things like hope and courage. Threshenak found it almost endearing, in a pathetic sort of way. His communication officer approached. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the Human Defense Forces. Display it." A human female appeared on the screen. She wore a military uniform and had cold gray eyes. Her face showed no fear, which Threshenak found mildly interesting. Usually, the prey species were already trembling by now. "I am Admiral Helena Vasquez, commander of Earth's Combined Defense Forces," the human said. "I am responding to your ultimatum." Threshenak leaned forward. "You have decided to surrender? A wise choice. I will ensure the processing is efficient." "No," Vasquez said. "I am not surrendering. I am giving you a warning." Threshenak's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. "A warning? Little creature, do you understand what is coming? I have 50,000 warships. You have perhaps 2,000. My species has exterminated over 300 civilizations. Your species has never fought a war in space. There is nothing you can do. You have made a mistake," Vasquez said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You looked at us and saw a young species, a peaceful species. You thought that meant we were weak. You are weak," Threshenak said. "No." Vasquez shook her head slowly. "We are not weak. We were just hoping we would never have to show the galaxy what we really are." She paused. "That hope is now gone. What you really are?" Threshenak was amused. "And what is that?" "You will learn," Vasquez said. "In 30 days, you will understand. And then you will feel something your species has not felt in 10,000 years. And what is that?" "Fear." The transmission ended. Threshenak stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he laughed again. The sound echoed through the bridge, and his officers joined in. Fear? From humans? The very idea was absurd. He had destroyed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. He had burned worlds that had weapons beyond human imagination. He had killed trillions of beings across dozens of species. And this small, soft, short-lived creature thought she could make him afraid? He gave the order to advance. 50,000 warships began moving toward human space. In 30 days, there would be no more humans. Just another forgotten species, another footnote in galactic history. Threshenak was certain of this. He was wrong. Far away, on Earth, Admiral Vasquez ended the transmission and turned to her staff. They were waiting for her orders, their faces grim but determined. "Begin Omega Protocol," she said. "It's time to show them what we really are." Somewhere deep beneath the Earth's surface, ancient doors began to open. Lights flickered on in facilities that had been sealed for centuries. Weapons that humanity had prayed they would never need began to wake up. And across human space, 18 billion people stopped being the peaceful newcomers the galaxy thought they knew. They remembered what they had always been: survivors. Deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, there was a door that had not been opened in 400 years. It was made of metal so thick that nuclear weapons could not scratch it. Behind that door was humanity's darkest secret. Admiral Helena Vasquez walked through that door on the 5th day after the Vethkai ultimatum. She was accompanied by the leaders of every human nation, every colony, every military force. They had been told to come. They had not been told why. The chamber beyond the door was vast. It stretched for kilometers in every direction. And it was filled with files. Millions of files. Billions of pages. Centuries of work. "Welcome to the archive of last resort," Vasquez said. Her voice echoed in the enormous space. "This is where we keep the things we hoped we would never need." General Marcus Chun, commander of the Mars Defense Fleet, stared at the endless rows of data storage units. What is all this? This is every way humanity has ever imagined to destroy itself, Vasquez said. And every way we imagine to destroy anything else. She began to walk, and the others followed. As she walked, she talked. Let me tell you a story, she said. 800 years ago, humanity had not yet reached the stars. We were trapped on one small planet, and we almost died there. Many times. She stopped at a display showing an ancient weapon. It was primitive by modern standards, but its purpose was clear. Nuclear weapons, she said. We built enough of them to destroy our entire planet 12 times over. Not once, 12 times. We came within minutes of using them on several occasions. We lived for decades with the knowledge that everything we had built, everything we loved, could end in fire at any moment. She moved to another display. Biological weapons. We engineered diseases that could kill every human on Earth. We made them in laboratories, and we stored them in bunkers, and we pointed them at each other. Another display. Artificial intelligence. We built thinking machines and gave them the power to control our weapons. We came close to losing control of them. Very close. The leaders followed her in silence. Many of them had studied history. They knew about the dark times. But seeing it laid out like this, weapon after weapon, disaster after near disaster, was something else entirely. The elder races achieved peace through millions of years of slow progress, Vasquez continued. They evolved past violence gradually. They had time. We did not. We had to learn to control ourselves while we still had the power to destroy everything. She stopped at a central platform. Above it floated a holographic display showing the full scope of the archive. But here is what the galaxy does not understand, she said. We never stopped preparing. Every generation, we asked ourselves the same question. What if the next threat is worse? What if something comes that we cannot talk to, cannot negotiate with, cannot reason with? What if we face something that simply wants us dead? And we answered that question. Over and over. For 800 years. General Chun's face had gone pale. You mean... I mean that everything the galaxy has seen is a fraction of what we have. Vasquez pressed a control, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed ships. Thousands of ships. Hidden in asteroid fields, in the dark spaces between stars, in dimensions that most species did not even know existed. The Concordat thinks we have 2,000 warships, Vasquez said. We have 37,000. And those are just the ones designed for conventional warfare. Another display. Weapons that made nuclear bombs look like children's toys. Planet crackers. Star killers. Reality anchors that could prevent any form of faster-than-light travel. Gray swarms that could disassemble matter at the molecular level. Psionic disruptors that turned an enemy's own mind into a weapon against them. We built weapons for every scenario we can imagine, Vasquez said. Invasion by hostile aliens. Attack by rogue artificial intelligence. Assault by beings from other dimensions. War against enemies who could predict the future, read minds, or manipulate time itself. She turned to face the assembled leaders. We are not a peaceful species because we lack the ability to wage war. We are peaceful because we chose to be, because we looked at what we could do and decided that we did not want to become monsters. But now, she said, and her voice was like ice, someone has decided to kill us anyway. Someone has looked at our peaceful nature and mistaken it for weakness. Someone thinks that because we chose not to use these weapons, we cannot use them. She smiled, and there was nothing warm in that smile. They are wrong. On the edge of human space, a HFY scout ship was conducting reconnaissance. Its crew of 12 was scanning human defense positions, counting ships, analyzing weapons. They were confident. Everything they saw confirmed what they already knew. The humans were hopelessly outmatched. Then their ship was captured. It happened so fast that they barely understood what had occurred. One moment they were in open space. The next, they were inside a human facility, surrounded by armed soldiers. A human officer approached them. He was young, with kind eyes that seemed oddly out of place in a military uniform. "We are not going to hurt you," he said. "We are going to show you something. And then we are going to let you go." The HFY commander hissed in confusion. "Let us go? Why?" "Because we want you to tell your masters what you have seen." The officer smiled sadly. "We want them to understand. We want them to have the chance to turn back." The HFY were taken to a viewing chamber. For 6 hours, they were shown humanity's true military capacity. The hidden fleets, the secret weapons, the contingency plans that covered every possible scenario. When it was over, the HFY commander could not stop his limbs from shaking. His species did not feel fear the way humans did, but they could recognize danger. And what he had seen was danger beyond anything he had imagined. "Why?" he asked the human officer. "Why would you build such things? What enemy required weapons like these?" The officer's face grew sad. "We built them for ourselves," he said. "We built them because we knew what we were capable of. We built them because we almost destroyed ourselves so many times that we had to be ready for anything." He leaned closer to the HFY commander. "Your species has never faced a real threat. You have been the predator for so long that you have forgotten what it feels like to be prey. But we remember. We remember what it is like to face extinction. We have lived with that fear for our entire existence. And now," he said, "we are going to share that fear with you." The scout ship was released. Its crew flew back to the HFY armada as fast as their engines could carry them. They reported everything they had seen. Commander Threshenak listened to their report. For the first time in his long life, he felt something cold move through his body, but he was proud. And pride would not let him turn back. Pride told him that these were just tricks, just deceptions. Surely no species could possess such weapons. Surely no species would build such things. He gave the order to continue the advance. 23 days remained. Back on Earth, Admiral Vasquez received word that the HFY were still coming. She nodded slowly. She had expected this. Pride was a powerful thing. She understood pride. She also understood what came after pride was broken. "Begin evacuation procedures," she ordered. "Get the civilians to the colony ships. And start waking up the weapons we haven't shown them yet." Her aide hesitated. "Admiral, some of those weapons? We swore we would never use them." "I know," Vasquez said. "But we also swore we would survive. And if we must become monsters to protect our children, then that is what we will become." She looked down at the stars, toward the approaching enemy fleet. "May God forgive us for what we are about to do." The first battle of the war lasted exactly 17 minutes. Commander Threshenak had sent a forward fleet of 5,000 ships to test the human defenses. He expected them to sweep through the border systems easily. He expected minimal losses. He expected to have human prisoners for processing by the end of the day. He received none of these things. What he received was silence. For 17 minutes, his forward fleet sent normal status reports. And then, suddenly, nothing. 5,000 ships. 75,000 HFY warriors. Gone. No distress signals. No calls for reinforcement. Just silence. What happened? Threshenak demanded. His officers had no answer. They replayed the final transmissions from the forward fleet. Everything seemed normal. Weapons charged. Shields raised. Moving into attack formation. And then, Static. A single escape pod was eventually recovered. Inside was a HFY soldier who had been at the edge of the formation. His mind was broken. He could only say one thing over and over again. The stars. The stars went out. And then the darkness ate them. Threshenak ordered a full investigation. What they discovered made no sense. The forward fleet had not been destroyed by conventional weapons. There were no explosions, no wreckage, no bodies. The ships had simply stopped existing. The humans had deployed something called a reality anchor. It created a bubble of distorted space-time where the normal rules of physics did not apply. Inside that bubble, faster-than-light travel was impossible. Shields did not work. Energy weapons fired backward. And anything made of matter slowly came apart at the molecular level. 5,000 ships had flown into that bubble and dissolved like salt in water. Threshenak felt the cold sensation again, stronger this time. But he pushed it aside. He was a warrior. He had destroyed civilizations. He would not be frightened by tricks. He ordered the main fleet to advance. All 50,000 ships. Whatever the humans had, they could not have enough to stop such an overwhelming force. He was wrong about that too. The Battle of Proxima Centauri lasted 3 days. When it was over, the HFY had lost 12,000 ships. The humans had lost 400. It was not a battle. It was a lesson. The humans did not fight like any species the HFY had ever encountered. Their weapons were not designed just to destroy. They were designed to terrify, to demonstrate, to teach. Nova lances that triggered premature stellar collapse, turning ordinary stars into weapons. Gray swarms that consumed entire fleets, breaking them down atom by atom while the crews watched themselves disappear. Psionic disruptors that reached into HFY minds and activated their deepest instincts of fear and panic. The HFY were not just being defeated. They were being systematically taken apart by an enemy that understood exactly how to hurt them. In the Concordat council chambers, the elder races watched the battlefields in stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this. No species in galactic history had ever displayed such capability. Where did they get these weapons? Asked Vorn, the crystal being who led the council. Its voice had lost its usual calm. A Concordat scientist, a being of pure energy called Luminax, provided the analysis. They did not get them from anywhere. They built them, over centuries, for every threat they could imagine. But these weapons, some of them should not be possible. The theoretical framework alone would take millennia to develop. Yes, Luminax said. It would. Unless you had a very strong motivation to accelerate your research. What motivation could produce this? Luminax was silent for a long moment. Fear, it finally said. Absolute consuming fear. Not fear of an external enemy. Fear of themselves. The council members exchanged confused glances. The humans spent their early history destroying themselves, Luminax explained. They nearly ended their own species dozens of times before they reached the stars. They developed these weapons because they were preparing for threats far worse than anything the galaxy could offer. They were preparing for the possibility that they might have to fight themselves. That is insane, Vorn said. Yes, Luminax agreed. It is. And that is precisely why it worked. No sane species would develop weapons like these. No sane species would imagine the scenarios that produced them. The humans are not insane. But they remember what it was like to be insane. And they built their arsenal accordingly. Back in the war zone, the HFY were experiencing something they had not felt in 10,000 years. Defeat. A captured HFY commander was brought before Admiral Vasquez. He was one of Threshenak's senior officers, a veteran of 30 cleansing campaigns. He had personally overseen the extermination of 4 species. Now he sat in a human interrogation room, his mighty limbs bound, his compound eyes tracking every movement of his captors. "Why?" he asked. It was the only question that mattered. Vasquez sat across from him. She looked tired, old. She did not look like a monster. "Why what? Why do you have these weapons? We have conquered 300 species. We have seen every kind of military technology the galaxy can produce. We have never seen anything like what your people have. These are not defensive weapons. These are not weapons of war. These are weapons of extinction." Vasquez nodded slowly. "Yes, they are. What enemy required such weapons? What could possibly justify creating things that can unmake stars?" Vasquez was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "We built them for ourselves." The Vethkai commander did not understand. "For yourselves?" "My species has a saying," Vasquez said. "He who fights monsters must take care not to become a monster. And if you stare long enough into the abyss stares back into you." She leaned forward. "We stared into the abyss for a very long time. We saw what we could become. We saw the monster inside us. And we built weapons that could kill that monster, no matter what form it took. The galaxy looks at us and sees a young, peaceful species. But they do not understand what it took for us to become peaceful. They do not understand the darkness we had to overcome. They do not understand that our peace was not a gift. It was a choice. A choice we made every single day, because we knew what would happen if we chose differently." She stood up and walked to the door. "You were never the threat we prepared for. You were just a reminder. A reminder of what happens when a species forgets to be afraid of itself." The commander called after her. "What will you do with us? Will you exterminate us as we would have exterminated you?" Vasquez paused at the door. "No," she said. "We are not going to exterminate you. We are going to do something much worse." "What?" "We are going to teach you." The door closed behind her. And in his command ship, watching his fleet be systematically dismantled by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive, Commander Threshenak finally understood what the human admiral had meant in her first transmission. He finally understood what fear felt like. It was just the beginning. The human fleet did not stop at the border. For the first time in 50,000 years, an enemy force entered Vethkai space. Not a raiding party, not a desperate counterattack. A systematic, methodical advance that pushed deeper into the Dominion every day. The Vethkai threw everything they had at the humans. Reinforcements from their core worlds. Ancient weapons from their most secure vaults. Elite warriors who had never known defeat. None of it mattered. The humans did not conquer. They did not occupy. They simply demonstrated. System after system, they showed the Vethkai exactly what humanity was capable of. They destroyed military installations while leaving civilian populations untouched. They dismantled defense networks with surgical precision. They made it absolutely clear that they could end the Dominion whenever they chose. And then they stopped. Just outside the Vethkai home system, Admiral Vasquez broadcast a message. Not just to the Vethkai, to the entire galaxy. Every species, every world, every ship with a receiver heard her voice. "My name is Helena Vasquez. I speak for humanity, and I have a message for all of you." In the Concordat chambers, the elder races watched in silence. In the Vethkai command centers, warriors stood frozen. Across 1,000 civilizations, billions of beings listened. 30 days ago, the Vethkai Dominion declared their intention to exterminate my species. They had done this many times before, to many other species. They believed they could do it to us. They were wrong. But this message is not about the Vethkai. This message is about something much more important. This message is about what humanity really is. Vasquez paused. When she continued, her voice was different, softer, almost sad. The galaxy looks at us and sees a young species. A peaceful species. A species that arrived late to the stars and spent most of our time asking questions and making art and trying to understand the universe. You thought we were children, harmless, weak. You were wrong about that too. Let me tell you what humanity really is. We are a species that almost destroyed ourselves. Not once, not twice. Dozens of times. We built weapons that could end all life on our planet, and we pointed them at each other. We created diseases that could kill every human in existence, and we stored them in laboratories, ready for use. We developed artificial intelligences that nearly enslaved us. We poisoned our own air and water and soil. We did all of this before we reached the stars, before we met any of you. We did it to ourselves, and we survived. Do you understand what that means? The galaxy's elder races achieved peace through millions of years of gradual evolution. You had time to grow wise. You had time to learn. You never faced the kind of danger we faced because you were never the threat to yourselves that we were. But we did not have time. We had to learn to control our worst impulses while we still had the power to destroy everything. We had to stare into the face of extinction and choose to step back from the edge. Not once, over and over again. Generation after generation. That is what humanity is. We are the species that almost destroyed ourselves and chose not to. We are the species that built weapons that could end civilizations and decided not to use them. We are the species that looked into our own hearts, saw the monster that lived there, and chained it. But the monster is still there. It has always been there. And when you threaten our existence, when you give us no choice, we will let it loose. The transmission showed images now. The battles against the Vethkai. The weapons that had turned stars into bombs and ships into dust. The terrible, beautiful efficiency of human warfare. You called us primitive because we seemed peaceful. But you do not understand what our peace cost us. You do not understand the daily struggle it took to become what we are. Every human alive carries the memory of almost extinction in their blood. We know what it is like to face the end of everything. We have faced it since we first picked up stones and realized we could use them to kill each other. The Vethkai hunted young species because they thought youth meant weakness. But they never understood what makes a species survive its youth. It is not strength. It is not technology. It is the ability to look at your own capacity for destruction and say no. It is the choice to be better than what you could be. We made that choice. Every day, we make it again. And because we know what we could become, we are more dangerous than any species that has never faced that darkness. The transmission showed the Vethkai homeworld now. Beautiful from orbit. Full of life. I could end this world, Vasquez said. Right now. I have 16 different ways to do it. I could burn it. I could dissolve it. I could tear it out of normal space and scatter its atoms across 1,000 dimensions. I could do to the Vethkai exactly what they plan to do to us. But I will not, because that is not who we choose to be. We did not come to the stars to become conquerors. We came hoping to find something better than ourselves. We came hoping that the galaxy would show us how to be wise, how to be peaceful, how to move beyond the violence in our nature. Instead, we found you. Species that have never had to struggle. Species that prey on the young and the weak because they have forgotten what struggle means. Species that look at our peaceful nature and see only an opportunity. So here is humanity's message to the galaxy. Our final message. Vasquez's eyes seemed to look directly at every being watching. We are not your prey. We are not your victims. We are not the helpless children you thought we were. We are survivors. We have survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We have survived our own worst impulses. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us for 3 million years. And we will survive you. You wanted to know what true fear is? True fear is not facing an enemy with superior weapons. True fear is facing an enemy that knows itself. An enemy that has already fought its darkest battle and won. An enemy that has nothing left to lose because it has already almost lost everything. We are that enemy. We have always been that enemy. We just hoped we would never have to show you. The transmission ended in the Concordat chambers. There was silence. The elder races looked at each other with new eyes. For the first time in their long history, they understood something important. They had been very lucky. Lucky that humanity had chosen peace. Lucky that humans had decided to be gentle, to be curious, to be kind. Lucky that the monsters inside human hearts had been kept chained, and now they understood something else. That chain could be broken. If humanity was pushed far enough, threatened severely enough, that chain would snap. And what would be released would be something the galaxy had never seen. On the Vethkai homeworld, the High Matriarch sat in her throne room and watched the transmission end. She was very old, even by Vethkai standards. She had ruled for 6,000 years. She had overseen countless CLEANSINGS. Now, for the first time, she understood what it meant to be on the other side. "Summon my council," she said. Her voice was strange, hollow. "What shall I tell them, High Matriarch?" "Tell them we need to discuss terms of surrender." Her aides stared at her in shock. "Surrender? We have never surrendered. In 50,000 years, we have never. In 50,000 years, we have never faced anything like this." The matriarch turned to look at her aide. "We have never faced a species that frightens me." "And they frighten you, High Matriarch?" "No," the matriarch said softly. "What frightens me is what they showed me. The thing inside them that they have learned to control. Because I recognize it." She turned back to the window, looking up at the human fleet hovering in her sky. "It is the same thing inside us. The same hunger. The same violence. The same capacity for destruction. But they have mastered it. And we have not. We have let it run free for 50,000 years, and we called it strength." She closed her eyes. "Now I understand. True strength is not the power to destroy. True strength is the power to destroy, and the choice not to use it. Arrange the surrender. Before they decide we are not worth teaching." The Vethkai surrender was unconditional. They did not surrender because they were defeated. Their fleets were damaged, but not destroyed. Their homeworld was untouched. Their empire, though shaken, still stood. They surrendered because they finally understood. High Matrimon Kresheval came to Earth personally to sign the peace treaty. She walked through streets filled with humans who watched her in silence. These small, soft creatures. These beings who live such short lives. These monsters in gentle clothing. She understood now why the universe had rules. Why the strong should not simply devour the weak. Why peace was not weakness, but the highest form of strength. She understood because she had seen what happened when a species survived its own violence. She had seen the weapons that fear could build. She had seen the terrible calm in Admiral Vasquez's eyes when she spoke of destroying worlds. "We will not cleanse again," the matriarch said as she signed the treaty. "Ever," Vasquez nodded. "We know. How do you know? How can you trust us?" "Because we recognize fear," Vasquez said. "Real fear. The kind that changes what you are. You have it now. You will never lose it." The matriarch looked at the human admiral for a long moment. "Is that how you live? In constant fear?" "Every day," Vasquez said. Every human alive knows what we are capable of. We teach our children about the times we almost ended ourselves. We make sure they never forget. That fear is what keeps us human. In the Galactic Concordat, everything changed. The elder races had spent millions of years believing they understood the universe. They had built their society on the assumption that peace came naturally to advanced species. That violence was a disease of the young, cured by time and wisdom. Humanity proved them wrong. Peace was not natural. Peace was a choice. And the species that truly understood peace were not the ones who had never known violence. They were the ones who had stared into the heart of violence and chosen to turn away. The Concordat offered humanity full membership, elder status, a place on the High Council, all the privileges that came with being recognized as a mature civilization. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka, the same woman who had begged for help just months before, stood before the council to give humanity's response. "We decline," she said. The council members were shocked. Vorn, the crystal being, spoke first. "You decline? But we offer you everything. Status, power, respect." "We do not want status," Tanaka said. "We do not want power. We came to the stars looking for wisdom, and we found species that had never learned the hardest lesson in the universe." "What lesson?" "That the greatest enemy is always inside." Tanaka's voice was gentle but firm. "You built your peace on comfort and time. You never had to fight for it. You never had to struggle against your own nature. And so you never truly appreciated what peace meant." She gestured to the vast chamber, to the representatives of thousands of species. "You allowed the Vethkai to cleanse young species because it was easier than stopping them. You looked the other way when the weak were destroyed because the strong were useful. You built a galaxy where might makes right, and you called it civilization. We will not be part of that." "Then what do you want?" Vorn asked. "We want to teach," Tanaka said. "We want to show the galaxy what we learned in our darkest times. We want to help other species face the monster inside themselves, the way we had to face ours. Not through war, not through conquest, through understanding." She smiled, and it was a sad smile. "We hoped you would teach us how to be better. Instead, we find that we must teach you. It is not what we wanted, but it is what we will do." 200 years passed. The galaxy changed. Slowly, painfully, but it changed. Humanity did not become conquerors. They did not build an empire. They became something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. They became teachers. When young species emerged into the stars, humans were there to guide them. Not to protect them from danger. Not to shelter them from the universe's harsh truths, but to help them face those truths. Every intelligent species must pass through a time of darkness, humans would tell them. A time when you have the power to destroy yourselves. Most species do not survive this time. They burn themselves out in war and hatred and fear. But some survive. The ones who look at what they could become and choose to be something better. The ones who face the monster inside and learn to live with it. The ones who understand that true strength is not the power to destroy, but the power to choose not to. We survived. And we can teach you how to survive too. It was not easy. Some species did not listen. Some fell to their own violence anyway. But many survived. More than ever before. And slowly, the galaxy began to understand what humanity had always known. On the 300th anniversary of the Vethkai War, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from every known civilization attended. Even the Vethkai, who had become one of humanity's closest allies. Admiral Vasquez was long dead by then, but her words were remembered. Her message was played for every being in attendance. "True fear," her recorded voice said, is not facing an enemy with superior weapons. True fear is facing yourself, facing what you could become, facing the darkness in your own heart. Humanity learned this lesson early. We learned it through blood and fire and countless near extinctions. We paid for this knowledge with almost everything we had. But we survived. And in surviving, we discovered something important. Something we want to share with the galaxy. The universe is not kind. It does not care about justice or fairness or right and wrong. Species rise and fall. Civilizations are born and die. And no one is coming to save you. But that is not a reason for despair. That is a reason for hope. Because it means that whatever you become, whatever your species chooses to be, is entirely up to you. The monster inside you does not have to win. The darkness does not have to consume you. You can choose to be better. That is humanity's message. That is what we learned in our darkest times. That is what we want to teach the galaxy. You asked us what true fear is. Now, you know. True fear is looking at what you could become. True fear is facing the abyss inside yourself. But here is the secret we discovered. The secret that saved us. The abyss is not your enemy. It is your teacher. And if you can face it, if you can look into its depths without blinking, you will find something wonderful. You will find the strength to choose. The recording ended. The ceremony continued. But the message lingered. A young species, just recently arrived in the galaxy, approached the human delegation afterward. Their ambassador was nervous, unsure. They had heard the stories about humanity, about the weapons, about the wars, about the monsters in human hearts. "We are afraid," the young ambassador said. "Our species is new to the stars. We have already begun to fight among ourselves. We fear that we will not survive." The human diplomat smiled. It was a warm smile, full of understanding. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "A story about our ancestors. About the times we almost ended ourselves. About what we learned in those moments." She put her hand on the young ambassador's shoulder. "And then you will understand why there is always hope." Far away, on 1,000 worlds, humans told similar stories. They taught similar lessons. They helped young species face their own darkness, the same way they had faced theirs. And slowly, generation by generation, the galaxy began to change. Not because humanity forced it to change. Not because they conquered or threatened or dominated. But because they had walked through fire and survived. Because they had faced the monster inside and learned to live with it. Because they had discovered the hardest truth in the universe and decided to share it. True fear was not the darkness outside. True fear was the darkness within. And true strength was the courage to face that darkness and choose, every single day, to be something better. That was humanity's final message. Now, at last, the galaxy understood.